How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. I want to talk to you about a stock that ARK Invest just bought, and I'll show you it here in a second. First of all, I just want to talk about it because they started putting a very significant amount of money in it. I mean, I had looked a couple weeks ago, and they started to throw maybe 60 million here, 5 million here. Now they're up to over 200 million in one of their portfolios, and they're up a significant amount in another portfolio because they started to put $60 million plus in the last 2 days. Both days they put over 60 million, I believe, into this stock, and I'll cover it here in a second. It's an interesting company. It's one that you've definitely heard of, and I'll explain kind of a couple things that I find are pretty interesting moving forward, and they're really talking about changing up the business model completely. So I'll hit on that a second. Before we do, though, I do want to say, if you guys want, there is a link down there to BlockFi if you're interested. I have a significant amount of my money in BlockFi. This is a good majority of my net worth, and I think I'm going to wire some more money here soon. I have it in a lot of it in GUSD. So this is just a stable coin. It gets 8.6% interest. If you guys are interested, I actually just did a video on it too, and kind of an interesting way to retire earlier with this money. So I'll leave that on the end screen, but something that I find pretty interesting in case you guys are interested. One interesting thing too that I think a lot of people didn't realize today because there was so much fear in the market. Square announced $170 million worth of Bitcoin that they're buying. I might make a full video on this, but they had already purchased 4,700. They're buying another 3,300 Bitcoin. So while Bitcoin is down today, it's down to about 51,000. It dropped even more than that earlier. I personally think that this Bitcoin in general is going to continue going up, and I don't want to spend too much time on that. But if you guys want to start with some cryptocurrency, there is a link down below. They're paying a bonus if you deposit a certain amount, up to $250 bonus, and then also you get interest rates on Ethereum, on Bitcoin, on GUSD. So it's a really interesting way, especially on days like today, in the last couple days, to get 8.6%, pretty much guaranteed at least, until they potentially, maybe down the line, change the interest rate. But right now they're paying 8.6% on GUSD, which again doesn't fluctuate in price at all. So there's that. Also, there's a link down there to my Patreon if you want to know exactly when I buy and sell different stocks. You can check that out. And if you guys don't mind hitting the like button, that's the last thing I'll ask. Please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe, and let's get into it. Please don't click away right when you see what the stock is, because some people do that. But again, they're changing up the business model, and I want to cover that. Twitter stock, they bought a significant amount. So Twitter is interesting because it's actually been going up in value. If you look here, the Nasdaq's been down the last couple days, but this is up 5% today. And then yesterday, I don't know what it was doing exactly yesterday. You can see it did drop on Tuesday. It dropped a significant amount, but it recovered really nicely and ended up positive on the day. So what are they buying? How much are they buying? Well, in their ARK-K, they bought $68 million one day and $65 million the next. So they have $136.5 million in this one portfolio, just in ARK-K. And again, this is only like 0.5% of their portfolio, so almost 2 million shares in just a few days. And then they have about 3 million shares, 2.8 million, in this other portfolio, and they have 203 million. It is 2.3% of their portfolio in ARK-W. Now, ARK-W, I think I actually did a video on this, but they bought 70 million out of the gate. They didn't buy anything the next day, and then they slowly started to put more in, but then you see a couple $30 million days. It did become something that was pretty significant, and now they actually sold off a little bit. So what are they doing? Why are they buying so much of this right now? Well, I think there are a couple different reasons. First of all, there's some news recently. Jack Dorsey said that the company is considering implementing subscriptions and other forms of payments. So let's just walk through it here. He said at a virtual Goldman Sachs Technology and Internet conference on February 10, subscriptions and other forms of payment could be coming to Twitter. The first thing we want to focus on is the economic incentive to people who are contributing to Twitter. So he said that can come through a regular subscription, that can come through content unlock, that can come through tipping. There is a host of things right now. We are studying and prioritizing what those things look like. So I think what he is talking about is something that's similar to Patreon, right? Where someone has a feed, or maybe like even if you want to talk about OnlyFans is kind of similar too. You can subscribe to someone, you can get their content. Twitter then gets a cut of that. So with Patreon, let's say you sign up for Patreon, you can get exclusive content, but Patreon takes a pretty decent amount of the revenue from that. So for me, I don't know if I can actually say how much they take, but it's north of 10% what they take. So maybe that's what they're looking for, just getting more money in there and not just relying on advertising and just that. So they said that they have already begun making moves in the subscription world. In January, Twitter acquired newsletter service Review, which also allows creators to get payments directly from their Twitter audience. Review takes a 5% fee for paid newsletters. Now, I don't know what else they're talking about including in this, because they talked about other forms of payment. I don't know if they're talking about some other type of payment besides just money, but I'm assuming they're just talking about maybe different types of payment, as in like tipping and that kind of thing. So that is what they're talking about. And then also, we've just seen subscription-based models do really well. This is valued around $58 billion. Over the last trailing 12 months, they've had a pretty decent revenue. I mean, if you've looked at revenue from Twitter, it actually is pretty consistently going up. I mean, it's not a significant amount compared to something like Facebook, but if you look from 2017 all the way till now, it is increasing by about 10 to 20% a year, but it is still at a pretty high valuation when you consider the price to sales. They're bringing in less than $4 million in revenue, and they're sitting around $60 billion. It's sitting around like a 14 to 17 price to sales ratio, which is pretty high for a company that's not really that profitable. I mean, you can look here. Some years they're profitable, some years they're not. If we look at the last quarter, they just announced this. So they just announced their last quarter results, and they actually increased revenue a significant amount from the third quarter. So Seeking Alpha does take a long time to load, but you can see here, $936 million. This quarter, they had $1.28 billion. So they actually had a pretty significant amount of revenue, but you can see it's a little bit cyclical. Now, I don't know. I don't pay for these keys over here, but I don't know. This seems like something that could be quite cyclical, at least looking at the last year. They go down in the summer, less people are on the phone or on their phones, and then around Christmas, ad rates go up. Also, more people are on Twitter, more people are inside. So that's something worth considering. But I think that there is something here possibly if they do turn to a subscription-based model. I know that I am interested in companies that have subscription-based models. For example, Disney. That's a streaming giant, which is very different. But I've heard possibly that Patreon might go public later in the future. And that's something that I would be interested in. That's something that I want to see, like what they offer and what they're valued at, because I think something like Twitter, if they're really talking about a subscription-based model, could be a direct competitor. I mean, this could trounce Patreon because they already have so much funding. I don't ever want to talk bad about Patreon because I use them and I like what they do, but with Twitter, I think they would have the capability to provide so much more because they are valued so much higher and they have so much more infrastructure built out. They are just much more mature. I think that's something that could do really well, honestly, if they move to a subscription-based model. Now, a lot of people will probably be pissed off. That's something to consider. I think they're probably not necessarily pulling the trigger because they'll alienate some of their user base, but it's not like they would probably force the creators to do this. Most creators would probably have a free section and then a paid section, tell all the free people after they tell the people they're paying them different things and use it as a funnel. But if they can take a significant amount of that and take maybe 5 to 10 to 20%, Twitter taking 5 to 10 to 20% of that in revenue, that could be big. I mean, I would definitely be interested because I don't think there's another platform out there that does something like this. Now, if I'm wrong, tell me in the comments below. but I think what they're doing could be very different from a lot of other things. So let me know what you guys think about this. Again, ARK Invest is throwing a lot of money at it. If they actually do this, I'm really interested in it. I want to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys for checking out WeBull. If you deposit $100, you can get 2 free stocks. Link is down below. Also, there's that link to BlockFi and to Patreon if you're interested in either of those. So you can get interest on your cryptocurrency, or you can see exactly what I'm buying and selling. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I apologize for this video that there's no face cam and that there's not really any editing. I just wanted to make this for you guys real quick. I planned on not making another video, but I think it's pretty valuable information for you guys to know. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.